me show you a rhyme, maybe.
1975. A $1 million musical bombed so badly, theaters threw it out within weeks. But then, something weird happened. Fans started sneaking in at midnight, shouting lines, throwing rice, turning failure into ritual. How did a box office corpse rise again to become the longest-running film in history? Today, we'll uncover the 20 strangest, scariest truths behind the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Number 20. Fans didn't just watch Rocky Horror, they turned it into a sweaty, glitter-covered cult ritual. In 1976, midnight at New York's Waverly Theater turned into organized madness. People showed up half-dressed, screaming at the screen, hurling rice, and dancing in the aisles. Within months, those crowds invented shadowcasts, live performers acting alongside the movie. It wasn't promotion, it was an uprising of outsiders who made failure fun. What started as mockery turned into obsession. Fox executives didn't plan it, yet couldn't stop it. The film spread city by city like a cultural virus. Today, that ritual still runs every weekend across the world. But behind those cheers and glitter, the original cast paid a price that wasn't theatrical. It was brutal. Number 19. The cast damn near froze filming in that haunted castle with no heat and soaking rain. Oakley Court looked like horror perfection on screen, but inside it felt like punishment. The production shot through damp British winter nights with no heating, no insulation, and water dripping from every corner. Actors changed in hallways, teeth chattering while cameras rolled. Susan Sarandon caught pneumonia, but she kept going because the budget couldn't stop for her. The crew wrapped her in towels between takes to keep her conscious. Equipment shorted out. Bats flew through the rafters. The glamorous castle was a miserable death trap, dressed in sequins. Yet the cold wasn't the worst part. What happened at dinner made everyone's stomach turn for real. Number 18. Under those catchy tunes, you're watching murder body horror and people literally eating a friend. The movie hides a cannibal joke in plain sight. Eddie, played by Meatloaf, gets killed with a pickaxe by Frank-N-Furter, then ends up served as the main course. When the lid comes off the platter, the cast's disgust isn't acting. It's genuine shock. That's when the film drops its mask of camp and turns into a horror show. Viewers in 1975 walked out confused, not sure whether to laugh or puke. The mix of comedy and gore made it a cult magnet. And while the audience laughed later, inside the story, two terrified newcomers were about to find out how deep that nightmare really went. Number 17. Two naive kids break down in a storm and walk straight into a horny alien freak show. Brad and Janet thought they were escaping the rain. Instead, they drove straight into a sexual laboratory run by a singing maniac in heels. Frank-N-Furter's mansion wasn't a home, it was a trap disguised as hospitality. Within hours, the couple's clean-cut act collapsed under manipulation, lust, and confusion. They went from innocence to submission while the audience clapped. Every rule of morality burned away under flashing lights and latex. The story flips horror tropes into a social experiment. What happens when purity meets chaos and loses? The answer hits harder when you realize this castle doesn't just trap bodies, it erases who they are. Number 16. Everyone in this castle is losing their identity until nobody knows what human even means anymore. Inside Frank's world, gender, desire, and sanity dissolve. Brad loses control, Janet explores new power, and Frank sees himself as God. Costumes, wigs, and seduction turn everyone into experiments. By the end, roles reverse. Creators beg for mercy, lovers become prisoners, and morality disappears under red light. It's freedom that feels like hypnosis. Everybody's transformed, and nobody remembers who they were. The line between human and monster vanishes in front of our eyes. But the real monster wasn't inside the story. It was the fate of the film itself, killed buried, and later resurrected by people who refused to let it die. Number 15. The movie flopped hard, then clawed back from the grave because misfits refused to let it die. When the Rocky Horror Picture Show hit theaters in September 1975, it collapsed fast. Most cities pulled it within a week. Fox couldn't figure out who the audience was. But by April 1976, a small theater in New York, the Waverly, brought it back for midnight screenings. People who felt unwanted in real life suddenly found a home there. College kids, drag performers, outcasts, they filled every seat. The studio watched in shock as a failure turned profitable again. It became the first movie to survive because of its fans, not its studio. But those midnight shows grew wild, unpredictable, and louder every week, until theaters lost control. Number 14. Midnight screenings became lawless chaos with rice toast lingerie and shouting wars louder than the film. Inside those screenings, chaos became ritual. People screamed lines back at the screen. Rice flew during the wedding scene. Water guns soaked the audience during the storm. Some fans came in full costume, others stripped down mid-show. Theaters cleaned for hours after each night, but refused to cancel because every ticket sold out. Police in some cities tried shutting the shows down for lewd behavior, yet more fans showed up. The noise got so loud that dialogue was barely heard. But in the middle of all this, glitter and shouting, few people noticed how dark the movie's final moments actually were. The last scene took everything to zero gravity, literally. Number 13. The ending isn't happy as the damn castle flies away and leaves the humans crawling in dirt. Near the end, Riff Raff kills Frank and Rocky, then raises a glowing weapon toward the ceiling. The castle rumbles, turns out to be a spaceship, and launches into the sky. Brad, Janet, and Dr. Scott fall to the ground as smoke covers the ruins. The UK version ended with a grim song called Superheroes, showing them crawling through rubble. American audiences didn't see that version until decades later. For years, people assumed it was a joke ending. It wasn't. The story ends in despair. Humanity loses everything. But even that bleak ending has a secret link to the opening scene, and a familiar voice hiding in plain sight. Number 12. Every frame is stitched together from trashy monster flicks and sleazy sci-fi that it proudly worships. From the start, the movie shouts its influences. The opening song, Science Fiction Double Feature, lists B-movies like Day the Earth Stood Still and Triffids. Director Jim Sharman and writer Richard O'Brien packed references into every frame. They borrowed props, lab designs, and lighting cues straight from the 1950s horror. The point was tribute, not parody. It's why the set looks like an old Universal soundstage mixed with glam stage lights. The whole film feels like a love letter to cheap cinema that refused to die. But inside that chaos, one real Easter egg ended up hiding where nobody expected it, under Frank's own throne. Number 11. The crew literally hid Easter eggs on set because boredom and madness were part of the vibe. During long shooting days at Bray Studios, the cast entertained themselves by hiding colored eggs in random places. It began as a prank during Easter week, but some eggs stayed lost. When fans later spotted one under Frank's throne on film, the rumor spread like wildfire. Producers laughed, but confirmed the story years later. It became the movie's first real-world myth. Viewers still pause scenes trying to spot them. These accidents added to the chaos that made Rocky Horror feel alive. And speaking of accidents, one moment wasn't a trick at all. Two performers' bodies and voices were swapped to create one unforgettable image that rewired cinema forever. Number 10. Those singing lips belong to one actor, but the voice to another, because identity is a joke here. The movie opens with a pair of red lips floating in darkness, singing Science Fiction or Double Feature. Most viewers thought they belonged to the singer. They didn't. The mouth was Patricia Quinn's, but the voice came from Richard O'Brien, the film's writer. Director Jim Sharman said he wanted it that way to blur gender from the first frame. The image was inspired by surrealist art and became one of the most famous openings in film history. That single trick told the audience nothing was what it seemed. The lips looked seductive, but felt disembodied, alive yet wrong. The movie never stopped playing with identity, and decades later, the strangest thing happened. It never stopped playing anywhere. Number 9. This movie never stopped showing anywhere. It's the undead zombie of cinema still breathing in 2025. When the Rocky Horror Picture Show opened in 1975, theaters dropped it fast. By 1977, it returned in midnight screenings that never ended. Every week since, somewhere in the world, the movie has played. That makes it the longest-running theatrical release in history. When Disney bought 20th Century Fox in 2019, fans feared it would vanish. But Disney made a rare exception. It kept Rocky Horror alive. No other film has that record. Screenings in Los Angeles, London, and Tokyo still draw full houses. It's more than nostalgia, it's survival. The film refuses to die. Yet that long life hides a number that no one expected, a profit too huge for such a tiny budget. Number 8, a $1 million joke turned into a $100 million monster that refuses to shut up. The movie cost about $1.4 million to make in 1974, shot over 6 weeks. Early returns were tragic. It earned less than $30,000 its opening weekend. Then came the Midnight Miracle. Over decades, through ticket sales, soundtracks, home releases, and merchandise, Rocky Horror made over $140 million globally. It became a goldmine built from failure. Every anniversary release sold out. Actors who once earned scale paychecks suddenly headlined conventions packed with thousands. For a movie about outsiders, it outlived every prediction. The profit shocked even Fox accountants. Yet the money wasn't what fascinated fans. It was the performance that grew around it, live, loud, and completely unfiltered inside theaters across the world. Number 7. Fans acting out the movie on stage turned every theater into a carnival of beautiful lunatics. It started small, 2 fans performing lines at New York's Waverly Theater in 1976. By 1977, full casts were mimicking the movie live, every Friday night. They wore corsets, wigs, and fake blood. Each screening felt like a rock concert mixed with stand-up comedy. Shadow casting, they called it. Soon, every major city had its own troupe. Performers rehearsed, built costumes, and choreographed dances like it was Broadway with bad lighting. For many, it was the only stage that welcomed them. Theaters turned into safe spaces before that phrase even existed. The crowd owned the film. But behind all that freedom, chaos ruled, especially during one freezing, chaotic night that none of them forgot. Number 6. The pool scene was freezing chaotic, and everyone admits there was way too much groping underwater. The final pool sequence looked like wild celebration on film. In reality, it was miserable. The water was ice cold, the lights overheated, and the sets smelled of chlorine and exhaustion. Actors like Tim Curry and Susan Sarandon were half submerged for hours. Cast members later admitted the underwater scenes got touchy as the chaos dragged on. Everybody was fondling underwater, one said during the 50th anniversary reunion. They laughed about it years later, but that night tested everyone's limits. The cameras stopped rolling, but the madness didn't end there. The movie's second life began soon after, saved by one bold studio executive who refused to bury a flop. Number 5. One Fox exec saved this disaster by rolling it out at midnight and accidentally birthed a religion. By spring 1976, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a corpse on film reels. Then a young Fox marketing executive, Tim Deegan, made one risky call. He convinced the Waverly Theater in New York to run it at midnight on April 1st, 1976. The crowd went wild. Word spread to Chicago, San Francisco, and London. Within a year, dozens of theaters joined the wave. Deegan said later, "It made money while breaking every rule." The studio never expected the chaos that followed, but it didn't stop it either. Those screenings gave the film a pulse again, beating stronger each month. And that rebirth took place inside a mansion that looked like it had crawled out of hell. Number 4. They filmed inside a real decaying Gothic mansion crawling with bats' rot and old hammer ghosts. Oakley Court, the filming location, stood outside London. Built in 1859, it had been used in old Hammer horror films like The Brides of Dracula and The Plague of the Zombies. By 1974, the place was falling apart. Rain dripped through cracked ceilings, floors tilted, bats circled the rafters. The cast shared one working bathroom. Yet the mansion looked perfect on camera, dark, grand, and slightly dangerous. The setting wasn't just decoration, it felt haunted. Locals said you could hear footsteps in empty halls at night. The crew joked about real ghosts joining the extras. But the true nightmare came later, when early versions of the film were literally cut apart before release. Number 3. Early prints butchered songs and endings, so depending on where you saw it, you got a different movie. When the film opened in the US in 1975, the superhero sequence was missing. Some test audiences thought it was too grim. Another song, Once in a While, vanished entirely. The soundtrack changed too, depending on the region. Fans who saw it in London and New York came away with different memories of the same movie. It caused endless debate among collectors and fans, later trying to find the true cut. Restorations decades later finally repaired those edits. But for years, no one had seen the full story as it was filmed. Marketing also twisted the image, using new posters that teased danger and seduction in the same frame. Number 2. Even the posters messed with people showing giant lips and the tagline, "A different set of Jaws." When Jaws ruled the box office in 1975, Rocky Horror leaned straight into the craze. A re-release poster showed huge red lips rising from darkness with the words, "A different set of Jaws." It worked. Crowds expected a horror thriller, walked in, and found a glam musical about aliens in fishnets. The marketing was both genius and misleading. Lorelei Shark, a former Playboy model, posed for the lips on that poster, another layer of playful confusion. Decades later, it remains one of cinema's boldest advertisements. Yet the movie's message had nothing to do with monsters from the sea. It was about people consumed by their own desires until none of them survived the night. Number 1. Everyone ends up dead, exiled or broken, because in this movie, the monsters always win in the end. By the final act, the party collapses. Frank-N-Furter is killed by his servants, Rocky dies trying to save him, and the aliens leave Earth behind. Brad and Janet crawl through smoke and debris as the narrator calls humanity lost in time. It's the quietest scene in the film. No music, no laughter, just defeat. Director Jim Sharman said the ending mirrored the death of glam rock in the late 1970s. Beautiful, reckless, and gone too soon. That's why the Rocky Horror Picture Show endures. It celebrates freedom, then shows its cost. 50 years later, the film keeps breathing through midnight crowds, each one screaming life back into the monster. The story doesn't end here. Every frame of Rocky Horror hides another secret waiting in the dark. What are your thoughts on how this movie played out? Are there any facts that surprised you? Let us know your thoughts below and subscribe for more great content like this. Stay tuned for our next Classic Movie Rewind.